Today I want to take a look back at a movie that came out over a decade ago, God's Not Dead. It's a tough movie to review. Viewers inevitably bring their own theological and political perspectives to the table, which will either clash with or be amplified by the narrative of the film. I'm not opposed to films with strong messages. Schindler's List masterfully exposes the horrors of anti-Semitism and Nazi atrocities. Avatar weaves anti-colonial and pro-environmentalist stances into the sci-fi spectacle. And the original Red Dawn delivered a right-wing anti-communist punch through the guise of an action film. But addressing religion head-on in a mainstream theatrical release like this was pretty unconventional at the time. To break it down fairly, I'll divide this review into a few sections. First, evaluating the film purely on its merits as a movie. Secondly, how effectively it conveys its message, irrespective of any agreement with that message. And finally, whether the movie shifted my own viewpoints in any significant way. And again, the movie's more than a decade old, so full spoilers ahead. On a technical and storytelling level, God's Not Dead is not a masterpiece, but it's far from a disaster either. Directed by Harold Kronk in his feature film debut, the production values punch above their weight for a modestly budgeted movie, proving the viability of niche Christian cinema. The plot follows a young man named Josh Whedon, a college freshman who enrolls into a psychology class taught by a staunchly atheist Professor Radisson, played by Kevin Sorbo. I only know Kevin Sorbo through Andromeda, but I guess he's been in a bunch of other stuff too, especially Christian movies. When Radisson demands that students declare God is dead in writing to pass the class, Josh refuses because he is a Christian. The course setup is coherent and unfolds in a logical progression. Josh researches his arguments, gathers allies, and faces potential costs, and this all builds towards a climactic confrontation. Sure, it's cliched. Every underdog stands up to the bully story you've ever seen, but it holds together without any major plot holes or confusing jumps. It has a tight runtime and the pacing is okay. That said, the antagonist, Professor Radisson, is the film's biggest weakness. He's portrayed as a cartoonish villain, sneering and tyrannical, utterly one-dimensional, forcing his atheism on students in a way that feels laughably unrealistic. Now, I understand that some college professors have their political and religious views, but this is over-the-top ridiculous. Now, this isn't on Kevin Sorbo, who delivers a solid performance. With conviction and charisma, he does well as an actor in this role. The issue lies squarely with the writing, which turns him into a straw man. Similarly, Dean Cain of Superman fame pops up as Mark, a self-absorbed businessman whose arc involves rejecting faith until crisis hits, specifically his callous abandonment of his girlfriend upon receiving a cancer diagnosis. It highlights themes of selfishness and secular life. While Cain does a competent job with the material, I like him as an actor. I'm a sucker for his version of Superman, which originally aired when I was a teenager in the 1990s. His character in this movie, though, unfortunately comes off as cartoonishly ridiculous, more of an archetype than an actual person. Josh, the protagonist, is easily the highlight of the film. He's likable, earnest, and relatable as a young man navigating faith under pressure. The actor gives the character warmth in this film. His performance is hardly Oscar-worthy, but it's just fine. Unfortunately, not everything around him fares as well. The dramatic subplot involving a breakup with his girlfriend, who pressures him to drop the debate for the sake of their future, feels overly hammy. The movie wants us to be like, oh no, how will he win her back? But she dumps him, and her lack of empathy and supportiveness makes me think good riddance instead. Their relationship is filled with eye-rolling dialogue and melodrama that feels more soap opera than cinema. The side characters, from Josh's supportive pastor to various classmates and family members, are mostly wooden and underdeveloped, serving little more than plot devices or mouthpieces for exposition. Visually, the cinematography is decent, clean, and professional looking. It doesn't feel like some TV special. It feels and looks like an actual movie. The filmmakers effectively use the campus setting for the debates, and the movie's pacing is achieved well through straightforward editing. It's not groundbreaking, but it gets the job done without distracting flaws. There is one very fake-looking airplane flying over an airport at one point. That's really not a big deal. However, the movie hits a real snag with its cameo of the Duck Dynasty reality show crew, Willie Robertson and his wife. Their appearance feels shoehorned in like a blatant commercial plug for their TV show, complete with an unrelated tangent about a journalist antagonist railing against the ethics of duck hunting for food. This side excursion stalls the momentum of the main plot, adding nothing meaningful to the central story and coming off as pandering filler, though it does reflect the film's crossover appeal to conservative audiences, but strictly as part of the flow of the movie, it fails spectacularly. It's like they paused the movie to show us characters that exist in real life who have a TV show that they needed to plug, and then they resume to the movie. It's like a commercial break built into the movie. God's Not Dead lands in the middle ground, watchable if you're in the mood for this sort of thing, but forgettable and flawed enough not to stand out. Despite its unexpected commercial success and spawning several sequels, the effectiveness of this movie itself is mediocre at best. Now let's talk about the film's overt goal to champion Christian apologetics. Apologetics being the rational defense of the Christian faith through Josh's debates, drawing on real arguments from thinkers like C.S. Lewis and William Lane Craig, such as the cosmological argument for God's existence and the critique of evolutionary theory, but as a persuasive piece, strictly speaking, as a persuasive piece, regardless of what my opinions are, it falls short. It's clearly aimed at evangelical Christians, essentially preaching to the choir by reinforcing beliefs that they already have, rather than challenging or expanding upon them. The debates are simplified to the point of caricature. Christian apologetics is a rich, fascinating field of study with deep philosophical nuance, historical context, and intellectual rigor, and this movie does none of that any justice whatsoever. Did the film alter my point of view in any way? In short, no, not at all. I'm a Lutheran, I'm already a Christian, but my tradition emphasizes sacraments, liturgy, and grace in ways that aren't focused here. The movie's evangelical lens, heavy on personal testimony, debates, altar call conversions, leaves sacramental Christians like Catholics, Lutherans, Orthodox, or Anglicans on the sidelines, even though the movie ironically used an Episcopal church as a set. Now I want to talk about that for a second because the pastor in this movie is supposed to be just your regular old American evangelical Christian, but it's very obviously an Episcopal church. If you've ever seen an Episcopal church, it looks an awful lot like a Roman Catholic church with a few little differences. And the pastor is holding what I believe the creators wanted to be a Bible. He's holding a red book with a cross on it, and I think the audience is supposed to think of that as a Bible. If you've ever been to an Episcopal church, you'll see those in the pews. That's not a Bible. That's the Anglican Book of Common Prayer. And if this guy is an evangelical Christian, he's not going to be holding the Episcopal Church's Book of Common Prayer in his hand. But it's a good-looking red book with a cross on it, and I think they want us to think that's a Bible, but it's not. I can't imagine this movie persuading atheists or agnostics to become a Christian. Now, maybe it happened, and if so, great. But I really don't think that's the common experience an atheist or agnostic would have watching this movie if they bothered to watch it at all. I think most of the audience of this film are people who are already Christian and just want that to be reinforced. That said, props to this movie for attempting to bring faith-based storytelling to wider audiences. It's not awful, it's not fantastic, it's not a game changer, but it's watchable. If you're curious about Christian apologetics, I'd recommend diving into the many books that are available, or just type in Christian apologetics into YouTube and you're going to get a lot more detail than this movie would present to you. I saw this movie once when it was new, and I was intrigued upon rewatch, so I do plan to watch the rest of this series. I have not seen any of the other movies. I am also in the process of going through and reviewing each of the James Bond movies, the Fast and Furious films, a lot of old 80s action movies, and some new movies as well. So click that like and subscribe button if you want to see more, and you can read my novels, which do have Christian themes, available on Amazon.com. Just search my name, Eric Wilfred Watson, and Wilfred is not with an O, it's Wilfred. Eric Wilfred Watson signing out.